What is up, Fixler here for Thomann synthesizers, and today we're having a look at IDM, one of my favorite musical genres, pioneered by artists such as Aphex Twin, Autechre, Boards of Canada, Square Pusher and the likes. And while I don't think any of them actually categorize their own music as intelligent dance music, for obvious reasons, that's pretty much just the term that stuck to referring to this kind of era and this kind of style. And another little disclaimer, obviously this is not going to be a comprehensive guide, how should it be, but it's just some of my favorite musical ideas from the genre that I like to appropriate for my own music. So this is obviously subjective to some degree and matter for debate. Anyways, that's it for this little caveat. Let's not waste any time and see where we end up. All right, let's get started with the first element, which is going to be the melody and chord progression. Obviously not all IDM tracks feature melodies and chord progressions. But some of my favorite tracks from the likes of Boards of Canada, Aphex Twin, etc. feature these melancholic, nostalgic, sad, minor melodies. So in this case, I already wrote a little chord progression and a little melody. So I started out in the key of G minor, and this is what I came up with. And this is still fairly basic. It's just two oscillators, slightly detuned and filtered down. This is just a chord progression. And now let me turn on a little delay. I'm using the Replica XT by Native Instruments, which is a beautiful tape delay emulation. And afterwards the Black Hole by Eventide. And now, as you can see, this is already starting to be a lot more effective. And now let's try and add in the melody on top. And here what also always helps is to have a little key tracking activated. So now you can start to hear the difference. Even though the sound is filtered down a lot, we're still going to start to hear the higher notes once I activate key tracking. It's very useful. And even though I'm doing this with the Super 8 by Udo, this could be done on pretty much any polysynth. And even if you just have a monosynth, you could actually just record each voice individually, and then you could still achieve the same result. Because the sound is just the most basic, two oscillators, slightly detuned. Any synth can do this. Alright, so here we are in my Ableton, and let's first have a little look at the processing that I did for the synth recordings, and afterwards let's have a look at the beat which I prepared, which sounds like this. And some crazy high IQ IDM stuff that I did with it, which sounds like this. Yeah, you get the idea, but one thing after another. Let's start with the synth recordings. As you can see, I have individual tracks set up here. One is for the chords, one is for the melody, and each of them have a separate auto filter so that I can manipulate the high frequency content individually. And then on the group, I have this effect chain, which I'm now going to deactivate and then walk you through one by one. Alright, first up here, Soothe. Basically just taking care of some resonances, not so important. Then another auto filter so that I can control later in the arrangement the filter for the entire group. But not right now, it's basically not doing anything. Here, Replica XT, as I already mentioned, by Native Instruments. Beautiful tape delay, which has some noise built in, some distortion, tape age, which simulates the worn-out tape from tape delay, and wow and flutter, which, as you know, I really love, and this is what it sounds like. Super amazing, and I put that on, I don't know, maybe 80% dry. And then it already sounds like this, followed by Black Hole by Eventide, which is my favorite big unrealistic digital reverb. Also very beautiful. Followed by an RC20 as usual, with some noise with an envelope follower built in. But just very subtle, so you're just going to notice it via headphones. Then here's some pitch instability to give it that Boards of Canada kind of vibe. Some distortion also mixed in subtly. Here's some bit crushing with built-in variation, but also only on, I don't know, 5 to 10%. Also just a very small nuance. And then another reverb here. Often I find it's super interesting to just, after a large reverb, to just put on another reverb. This is what it sounds like. I think it makes it even larger. And then I also mix it in only 15–20%. Yeah, amazing. And I think that's it. No, there's another RC20 which just does some subtle tape, some subtle vinyl crackle. Yeah, amazing. Love it. And then one thing that's also great is I can pitch this melody down by 12 semitones, 1 octave, and it still sounds super epic. I think I might even prefer it to the higher version. All right, that's it for the synths. And I think this sad, melancholic, atmospheric, ambient type melody is a great contrast for some super aggressive, weird, ADHD type drum sounds, which sound like this. Yeah, so let me tell you what I did here. These first 4 layers here, which I'm going to solo now, this is basically all taken from some recordings that I did from the LXR-02 by Erica Synth. And how exactly I created these sounds, I actually explained in one of my previous videos on the, I think something with complex sound design or something like this. You're going to find it on the screen right now. What I did in the video is I basically talked about why I like to create drum loops consisting of various sounds from drum loops already with a bit of processing applied, because then I can just go here into my sample library, go into my folder, which is called LXR-02, dry, and then I can just have all of these loops here and just drag them in here and start grabbing slices and putting them together to form rhythms. And as you can see, I did that here with 4 layers of different LXR-02 sounds that I created. And what's great about these, I think aesthetically for this kind of use here, is that they sound nothing like your typical 808, 909, 707 or whatever. They just sound like electronic, artificial drum sounds, which is great. But then actually how I started crafting this beat was, I think the very first stem that I created was this break beat here. On which I have a transient shaper, which is taking out basically all of the sustain. So when I turn this back up, you're going to hear how the breakbeat sample actually sounded like. So a lot of stuff in between the individual hits. I just wanted less substance, just the percussive impacts, just the groove, and some of the texture, especially the vinyl noise here, is really great, and it matches really great with electronic drum sounds I basically want to grab the impact from the electronic drums and the texture and the character and the groove from the breakbeat sample. Yeah, the breakbeat sample makes it feel more human and funky and warm. And then also from this same breakbeat sample, I grabbed this little vocal sample here, which sounds like this. Yeah, as you can see, it was included here. Must be James Brown or something, but I think in this pitched up way and in this IDM context, it is for me kind of, I don't know, Bots of Canada reminiscent, because there's always like children's voices in their music or stuff like that. And then, as you notice, this breakbeat is somewhat dark in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of high frequencies, so it's a great opportunity to layer it with a brighter breakbeat, which I did just here, as you can see. Both breaks are obviously taken from the Jungle pack, as usual. And then here, this one, I don't know the exact origin of the sound, but it must have been a breakbeat that I processed really heavily. And then, yeah, it all comes together quite nicely, like this. Sick. And then optionally, just so I can activate it at some moments in the arrangement, here I have another breakbeat, an aim and break, lined up with the other rhythm. Just so I can activate it if needed in the arrangement. All right, and then let's have a look at the effects that I put on the group here by first deactivating all of them and then reactivating them. Starting out with the utility here, just taking off 6 dB, followed by a little reverb, which sounds like this. Very unnatural actually, but just mixed in a super subtle way. It adds some glue, I guess, because all of them are going through it. So there are some artifacts in a stereo field that all of these sounds have in common, or they collaboratively produce. So this gives subtle glue. Yeah. Reverb, utility, what's next? Little bit of compression to equalize it a bit volume-wise. And then here actually I'm using a phaser on the entire group, which sounds like this, but I only mix it in a tiny bit of the wet signal. Why? Because these filter sweeps that are going through the signal, they also, again, just create some commonalities between all of the sounds, gluing them more together, even if you don't really notice it. But just do 20, 30 things like that, and suddenly you have a great production. But I was too lazy, I only did 2 or 3 here. Anyways, next, RC20 again, doing some heavy lifting. Obviously some distortion here, but also only mixed in a slight bit to create some overtones for all of the sounds together that they share, providing further glue. And then some noise with an envelope following, which sounds like this. But here again, also super subtle, maybe 10, 15, 20%. Works beautifully with the vinyl noise. makes everything sound even warmer. And you just really hear it in the stereo field, so that it just, the individual high drum sounds, they still can cut through easily because it's not so loud, but you can hear it at the sides of the mix where there's not much going on. So it's filling in some of the spaces, but it also follows the rhythm exactly, which I think is amazing. And then what do I have here? This is basically a multi-effect that I built myself from these plugins here: high pass filter, low pass filter, flanger, phaser, and RC20 with some bit crushing and vinyl noise. And this is created in such a way that I can just turn the whole effect group on and off and use it in an arrangement. And you're gonna hear why it's useful in a bit. Yeah, this is obviously super powerful for automation. So what I could do, let me demonstrate real quick, is I could automate that this effect turns on here, and then it's going to be turned off again, and then a filter sweep from the low frequencies happens, and then it would sound like this. You get the idea. Super useful to have something like this on your entire drum group. And then lastly, there remains the question, what the hell did I do here with all of these high IQ intelligent dance music moves? Yeah, really love it, but I have to disappoint you actually. It doesn't require such a high IQ because I have a beautiful tool called Infiltrator, which does most of the heavy lifting. And I have one instance of it here on the drum group, and I'm gonna just basically skip through presets, and you're gonna see what it does. It's a multi-effect plugin with 10 slots that could be filled with anything from a filter, beat repeat, flanger, whatever, reverse, and you can build your own presets, obviously, but there's, I don't know, I guess a couple hundred presets, many of which are great, and also have macro controls here, so you can actually manipulate the presets. And what I did is, while skipping through presets, I resampled what came out here into these audio files that you can see here. These are basically, yeah, just resamplings from this plugin. Let me demonstrate it to you. As you can see, this one's already called Licking Windows. Little Aphex Twin, not here, or Tegra remix. So, as you can see, to some degree, this plugin was built really with IDM in mind. Oh, lovely. And yeah, then what I would do is basically just have this resampling track here enabled, turn off the synths, and then basically just hit play and record while the plugin's enabled. And voila, I have a new loop, and I'm going to call it FX16. And then what I did is I went in here, basically duplicated the entire drum loop here into the arrangement, and then, as you can see here on these two tracks, I actually have some Infiltrator resamples that are already prepared, and then whenever they play, I basically deactivate or delete here the actual main drums. But there's some overlap between them. So let me demonstrate maybe by just taking our new slice that we just created here, the FX16, and I would put it here on one of the empty spaces. And then, I don't know, take it here and then remove the actual dry drum sound so that in this same moment here, the resample is playing from the affected version. Yeah, and then this is what it sounds like. There's a little amen moment here, which I really like. And then together with the synths, it comes together really beautifully. So let's listen one last time. Yeah, so as you can see, it sounds actually much more intelligent and sophisticated than it actually turns out to be. But that's good news for you, because this is super easy to create. So now what happens if you don't have Infiltrator? Obviously, you could do all of this stuff in any DAW. It just would be much more of a pain in the butt, basically, to create stuff like this. Because all of these effects are also step sequenced for some effects to turn on only in particular moments. Like here you can see on this step the delay is on, but then on the other steps it's off, etc. But you could recreate all of this with Ableton stock plugins and automations. But it would be yeah, just a lot more work. And this also goes to show how insane the work actually is that people like Aphex Twin or Tegra, etc. did 20, almost 30 years ago, depending on which release we are looking at. And they did stuff like this with much, much more limited technology, which makes it even more impressive. But yeah, I hope this gave you some ideas. In case you also have some more ideas, as usual, let me know. And I guess that's it for this little yeah, walkthrough of some of my favorite IDM moves. All right, I guess that's it from my side for today. In case you have any questions, as usual, let me know in the comments and I'm gonna try and get back to you ASAP. Apart from that, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Peace out.